and he understands the interests of the institution.
Local and international trainings will also be entered in the system and reflected on all certificates issued to engineers. The system is being worked on to be used in all East African Community member states. Kenneth Bwire, WBS News.
Decades of mismanagement of Uganda's financial sector are catching up with the banking system, failing the operations of some of the banks, according to an economic researcher. Musa Mayanja Lwanga from Economic Policy Research Center also urged that the absence of credible information of banking customers causes banks to lose up when they cannot keep track of their customers when loans are issued out. This has seen some players in the banking sector as well take a bow or be forced out when they face to break down.
It has been a stormy and tough climb for the banking sector in Uganda. While Uganda had 294 commercial bank branches in 1970, by 1987 there were only 84, of which 58 branches were operated by government-owned banks. This number began to increase slowly the following year, and in 1989 the gradual increase in the banking activity signaled growing confidence in Uganda's economic recovery. Now, obviously, we're all wondering what's happening to Uganda's banking sector. To put these pieces of the puzzle together, we're joined in studio by Musa Lwanga Mayanja from the Economic Policy Research Center. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
If you were a doctor and our banking sector were a patient and you were to examine it, what do you see right now?
Bank of Uganda, at the time, the law was actually very weak. Supervision of these banks was very weak. So Bank of Uganda, or Parliament and government, come up with a new law to regulate the financial sector. However, normally regulation is not the only solution. It's good to have very good regulation. However, the banks themselves have to be managed very well. Because the banks that failed in the 90s, most of them was due to mismanagement. You had shareholders that were so powerful in these banks that they could influence the decisions of their managers.
In Uganda's case, you've seen the closing of banks like Global Trust Bank.
Yes.
You've seen the closing of Fina Bank. What led to the closing of these banks, which could be the reason why so many other banks in this economy have ended up packing up, have ended up being swallowed up, have ended up failing?
One, because you have a very, very small banked population. That means the potential for a bank to grow in Uganda looks very promising. However, what do banks do when they get into the Ugandan economy? One, some try to push so fast to acquire market share, open up very many branches, and maybe not so unique for developing countries. The cost of operating banks is actually very high, and you can clearly see this in the rate of interest that banks in Uganda charge. And when you ask all bankers, they will tell you, our operating costs are so high. When you ask a banker, why can't you put a branch in a rural area, they will tell you, there is no electricity, the roads are so bad, I cannot operate there unless I'm only making losses.
Some people have argued that mortgages are some of the reasons banks end up failing, because either they undervalue these mortgages or something in that line, and they end up making more losses, so they keep losing little by little.
Many people might don't know, but it is information. Information is so expensive in Uganda. If I brought you a land title, for you to actually find out that this land title is genuine, you might fail to find out that the land title is genuine. And now you come with your intuition. Because yes, there are officers that can verify land titles, but by the time I actually access that information, it takes a very long time. And these are some of the things that add on to the cost of operating banks. How do I verify information? How do I know that you actually live in Kawempe, where you've told me you live? In Uganda, it's so easy for me to actually access an LC letter that I will bring to the bank from a place that I don't live in. So if I take a loan, I could disappear.
And it makes us wonder how secure our central bank is.
Our central bank is actually very secure. And if you look at where we've come from, the central bank has done a very good job in making sure that banks are well supervised, making sure that it produces stress tests and reports on banks, and making sure that even when a bank fails in Uganda, the depositors are protected.
The aspect of banks concentrating in the city center and neglecting the rural areas. And let's not forget, actually, people in rural areas tend to have a lot of money that they prefer to keep in their houses, under mattresses. Don't you think banks are losing out by not taking advantage of these opportunities?
Most countries that have actually grown their financial sectors have high levels of urbanization. Uganda has like the lowest level of urbanization, like 16%. Now, when you look at how our villages or rural areas are spread out, you'll see that it will take you 5 kilometers or more to move from one house to another. Now, if I was a bank locating in a rural area, where would I put my branch? And how many, if I'm trying to bring the services closer to the people, how many branches am I going to put in the rural areas? That, you look at that as a very huge operation cost. 2, you're not going to find so many people willing to go and work in this environment. So for a banker to actually have a branch in that rural area, you have to pay a lot of money to your workers to stay there.
Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And you are still watching the afternoon edition. We take a very short break. When we return, it will be sports. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look at what's happening in the world of sports. Aston Villa boss Tim Sherwood says his side is still alive after Christian Benteke's late penalty secured a 2-1 win over West Brom, lifting them out of the relegation zone. It was Sherwood's first win since he took charge of the club in February. Gabriel Aglonohar scored Villa's first before Saido Berahino as well replied. Villa's first league win since 7th December lifted them 2 places up the table out of the bottom 3 to 17th spot with 10 games remaining. Now they are 3 points ahead of the 18th placed QPR, who entertain Arsenal on Wednesday. And well, that's all we had time for. More sports will be coming your way on CKM Izanyo with Web Daniel Sebakije. I'm Mildred Tohai say our time is up. Good afternoon and thank you for staying with us.